You know. Oh, good, perfect. I'm just in time. I would everyone to know this. If you put
Oh, good.
mayonnaise on the outside of the thing you're frying and butter, it's better. Very, very small amount. Don't overdo it. But
No, people always go crazy with the mayo. You have to say just enough mayo.
like scrape
Yeah.
it over the bread.
Yeah,
Special winner.
that's true. Yeah, for those who are unaware, Whitney's been really into grilled sandwiches recently. You've heard of them, I'm sure. Yeah.
I've entered a new era. I'm looking forward to trying out this grilled cheese sandwich. I've heard good things.
Yeah. It's pretty, I mean, it's a little out there. Like, I understand a kind of apprehension that you could have, but
yeah, like cheese is
trust
dairy.
me.
You shouldn't fry milk. So,
right. But,
yeah,
or should you?
I mean, I'm open to trying it now.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is that I
You've
have
heard of,
about
like, mozzarella sticks.
yeah.
It's similar.
But longer and thinner. Flatter, if you will.
There's a different, crispy outside to gooey inside ratio that to me is actually quite pleasant. Maybe that's a hot take.
I mean, it's quite literally hot. They just came out of the fryer.
Yeah.
Edit in a badumts there for me, please.
Will do.
I put an egg in it.
A grilled egged sandwich? That's crazy. Nobody would think of that. Would you like me to read you some poetry while you're eating? Okay. Would you like the white one, the red one, or the blue one?
Blue one, please.
Blue one, okay. Good choice. These are modern
had two
poems,
red beverages
so
today.
you'll be able to understand them.
Oh, goody.
Yes, an introduction to poetry. No, it's just, again, in this day and age, you want something that really, what? No way! Would you like to hear this fun fact? Let's see. It says, "For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return." That's in Genesis. Remember when God made the world in exactly 7 of our days and also wrote it down?
I sure
and
do.
then I will show you fear in a handful of dust. So it says dust has a near synonym that also sounds much the same, dirt. In certain expressions, dust is merely dry dirt, to shake the dust off of one's feet. But substitute one word for the other and you'll see that dirt has very different connotations. Quote, "For dirt thou art, and unto dirt shalt thou return. I will show you fear in a handful of dirt." Dirt's meaning in Old English was excrement.
Whoa!
Whoa! Some people still use it in this sense, and it carries a connotation of intense disapproval or disgust, as in such expressions as dirty tricks, dirty work, or dirty movies. Slanderous or derogatory information about someone is dirt. Interesting.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. One may fear a handful of dirt, but it is defamation rather than death that is threatened. Interesting. So that's just a fun fact in the introduction to this book about reading poems. Let's go.
That was a fun time with poetry.
Yes. In the poetry corner.
That could be a fun little quest for us.
I really just stall for time and say, now it's time for poetry corner.
Yay!
So earlier, you may remember, we had been talking about The Lion King 1.5.
Oh yeah.
And we were like, I like how it's in the theater. It's kind of like Mystery Science Theater type thing. And then you were talking about how it's a lot like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where it's telling somebody else's story, but like through their perspective. And so I looked it up, and wouldn't you know it, those are their 2 main inspirations. Those 2 pieces of media. Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Mystery Science Theater for real was one of the... That's crazy! I didn't even know that! Yeah. That's one of my favorite things.
It was like, we're so smart. I literally said that. Like, I was like, why are we the best? But
We
anyway,
are so
yeah.
in tuned. We're in the matrix, as it were, of media that we can just look at one random straight
And I
to
literally,
DVD
like I told you,
sequel and go
I've seen it
inspirations.
one time as a child. And I distinctly remembered, like, oh, this is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern meets Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like, come on.
What two things to like
No.
meld together? What? That's so
For me
odd.
to remember 17 years down the road or whatever, like, it's so weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Hamlet just can do that.
hmm And
It's
that's the
just
thing about
infectious.
Hamlet. That's another thing that's like really unifying towards humanity, right? Like everybody at some point or another relates to Hamlet, right? Like there's a lot of other of Shakespeare's works and like specific characters that you might kind of see yourself in some way, but Hamlet is like the guy,
Right.
you know, that like
He's a little insane. He's
yeah.
vengeful. He doesn't listen. He's reckless. It's his own
hmm
damn fault. But you
Yeah.
love him. You get it. It's
Yeah.
not like,
You just have
no,
to
why
love him
would
and
you do that?
everybody
You're
loves
so
him.
stupid. It's like,
It's like, yeah,
yeah,
man, like I'm sorry this happened to you, but that's rough. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just such a and it's one of those things I'm sure I've mentioned before where it's like reading Hamlet is like listening to like Creep by Radiohead where you're like, oh come on, like everybody's not, oh it's so good, it's a cultural reset, it can't be that good, and then you actually experience it and you're like, oh my
you're like, oh,
gosh,
it
like
is.
no, it is perfect actually. Like it isn't overrated, it's somehow still underrated, even
It's
though
still
it's like one of the
underrated.
most popular things.
Yeah.
And that
This
shouldn't,
is
yeah.
literally how everyone has felt about RRR, by the way. Every single person that I've showed,
I
I
know.
have hyped it up so much. And I've told them, you might think I'm overhyping it. I'm not. I'm like lowballing it, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
every time I'm right.
Because every
There's
time you
literally
don't
no
want to
amount of
come
praise.
off, you don't want to come off like too intense. You want to tell just enough about it to get them interested, which varies person by person.
Yeah,
And so of
yeah,
course you're not
exactly.
gonna like give it the full meat of energy that it deserves. Because like, come on, man, it's like impossible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. You need
Yeah.
You're
What
a
a lucky,
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 lucky little
lucky little
boy.
boy, 'cause you know why? You get to drink from the fire hose!
I've told you and I relate to this.
Mhm.
I have more fun watching someone watch a movie that I like almost than I like watching a movie myself.
Mhm.
And that's
And
especially true
especially
for
with
this
that
one.
one, like, because there's so much to react to.
There's so much.
Every
There's so
5 seconds, you could like
You're
make
like,
sure that
what?
people are in on
The
it, you know?
flaming tire? Wait, he put his hand where? Wow, he threw nails
Yeah,
on the road.
exactly. Where he picks up an entire running motorcycle with one hand,
One
loops it around
hand.
his head like a lasso, and then you're like, dude, this is unbelievable. But like in the cool way where you're like, and not like, this is so unbelievable. Because that's
Yeah,
lame.
yeah.
Yeah. I do
That's a
remember
stupid
when I
way to
watched
think
it
about
with,
things.
it is. I watched it with Gabe and also Peter briefly and Nick and Frank and Mateus kind of. Because he was also doing homework and the TV is like here to him, so he'd have to like
Amazed that he was able to
I
tear his eyes away from it.
know. I was like, I could never. But anyway, so we're like, it was like 5 or 10 minutes into the movie, and like the movie already starts out with this really fantastic feat of like superhuman ability. Right off the bat, like, oh, this is like um not meant to be realistic. It's like hyper, there's
Yeah.
something about it. Yeah. So then we're like 5 or 10 minutes into the movie and something happens and Frank is like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, it's a movie, Frank. Then a couple minutes later, something else happened and he did it again. And Gabe was like, hey, what if this was a movie? I was like, finally. Like,
Thank you, Gabe.
thank you, Gabe.
never understood that mindset. Why do you want a movie to be realistic? Why do you want it to be what happens in real life? Why don't you want to see a man fist fighting a tiger with a flaming torch? What's wrong with you?
It's a movie, Frank.
It's a movie, Frank. Hey, how about we suspend our disbelief?
Yeah, or like somebody early on, I think Nick asked a question like, "Oh, who is this?" or like, "What's going on?" And Gabe was like, "Maybe we'll find out because it's the beginning of the movie."
Listen.
Like, we all have the same amount of information at the beginning of the movie. Why are you asking me what's going to happen? Watch the movie and find out. They're not going to leave your questions unanswered. Not in this movie.
Not in this one. In Bahubali, you don't know Jack for about 2/3 of that movie. Yeah. And that's the way it's meant to be.
Neither do the characters. None of them know what's going on.
You're following Shivu. Shivu doesn't know anything ever. He's spent the last 20 years of his life trying to just climb up a waterfall. You think he knows how to talk to girls?
He's like a naturally talented artist, and he likes to climb, and that's it.
That's all he's got. That's all he knows.
Yeah.
I genuinely, like, with all sincerity, if anyone in my life doesn't like Triple R, this doesn't go for pretty much any other movie, but this one specifically, if you walk out of that and you say, I don't really like it all that much, I'm never speaking to you again. Yeah, snip, snip, bitch. You're gone.
If anybody in your life says it, they're no longer in your life. Who said that?
I don't know them. I don't know her.
Longtime listeners might know that we have talked about Rango in the past, and the reason I say might is that I'm not sure if we have that recording due to circumstances.
Well, anyway, within our control.
Whether you've seen or not seen that episode, know this to be true. We like the movie Rango. We think it's a good movie, and you should watch it with an open mind and an open heart.
Yes. Which should go, by the way, for every movie all the time. Watch it with an open heart and an open mind, even if you think maybe I won't like this. This is actually directed
maybe you won't.
At my father, Jason.
But like maybe you will, you know?
Maybe. You never know. Sometimes you don't, and that's okay. You don't have to like every movie. Yeah. But like you never know unless you try.
Yeah.
We have talked about Rango. We only talked about it for 20 minutes. Oh. I want him to watch Puss in Boots. I think he'd really like it. But I don't he doesn't like animated movies.
Oh.
Because his brain is closed. But that's okay.
Yeah. I'll try it. Yeah. I feel like that could be a good one to like get more into it though, because like you say, it is very like innovative. Yeah, like you're not just watching things happen on screen that are animated that could easily be done with live action. Like it's like elevated to the point where like if they did it live action, it would lose some of the flavor, right? For like Shrek, I feel it's very like basic animation, so it doesn't necessarily come across that way. Like it could be live action, and you wouldn't necessarily lose a lot of that. But just the effects of like The Last Wish, you know, there's so much that they can do in animation that they wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah,
in live action, it wouldn't come across the same way. So I feel like that's a good one to start with, because you're not just like watching a movie and you're like, this doesn't have to be drawn, you know?
Right. Yeah. Which I feel like is why Shrek the Musical works as well as it does. It surprised everybody, I think, being
I think so.
as decent as it was. But yeah, like the animation is simple enough that it's like, sure, we can just have people do this. And it's fine. And then they do like that fun dragon on stage. It's great.
I think a lot of stage adaptations really shine because they have to figure out how to do this practically, even though it is a kind of fantastical thing that you wouldn't be able to do. Yeah, and live. Anyway.
We have not talked about sequels even once.
No, not really. We talked about Lion King 1.5.
We mentioned Lion King 1.5.
We've briefly talked about it twice now. And we talked about Rango, which doesn't have a sequel. And we've mostly talked about baby names.
For like a long time.
Like Edith. Anyway.
Sequels.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
To coin a phrase that nobody else has said before.
Hi, Rhett and Link.
Hi.
Long-time listeners. Rhett and Link. Shrek 2. Let's talk about Shrek 2. That's
Shrek
a good
2.
one.
Let's talk about Shrek 2.
I watched a video essay a while ago, and I don't know if I could find it again. I will look for it. But basically, it talked about how Shrek 2 maybe is not a perfect movie because it's not really possible for a movie to be perfect, except for RRR. Obviously. But it is the perfect sequel. And there are a lot of things that he went through and like described what make a sequel perfect or what ruins a sequel. And I think the one thing Shrek 2 especially does really well, going back to like our world building and like being based on a story, is that it expands the universe that we already are familiar with, but in a way that's not like overwhelming, you know? Like we go to Far, Far Away, and it's like this Hollywood-esque land. Like it's still a little familiar, but it's like a little
he's going into
like,
the big city. Yeah,
and it's funny, but the jokes aren't like the crux of the story. It doesn't rely on like a cheap little winks at the audience to like keep the story moving along. Like they're there, but they just enhance the story that you're already in. Like it's like you're driving down a highway and you just kind of see a funny billboard and you're like, oh, ha ha ha. But it's like that versus being stuck behind a car with a billboard flashing at you for 45 minutes, you know? It's like okay, it's very artfully done.
Stop me from crashing this car right now.
Like, yeah.
Leave me alone. Yeah. That's true.
I mean, it is.
Yeah. And it's just funny. I like how, isn't that the one where they just like kill the villain?
Yeah.
Like he just dies. They don't come back to that. It's not like the little kid thing where they like put him in jail or something and then he's not a problem anymore, or like he turns good somehow so he's like still alive but he's not a problem anymore. He just
the fairy godmother, they kill her. She explodes.
Yeah. And that's awesome.
That's great. We love that.
We need more like finality in movies, even though like there's like 5 Shrek movies, right?
And some of them
but
are good.
They're just like, and some of them are good. But they'll like, even if they like kill off the villain, like dead, they explode her. They're like, and if they're gonna make a new movie, they're not gonna just keep bringing her back somehow Palpatine Returns style. You know what I mean? They're gonna. Who said that? You know what I mean? They're like, well, we have this whole world.
Let's find
draw from anywhere. Like and there's different places and different characters, and we could just bring somebody new into the spotlight to be the new hero or the new villain of this movie.
Yeah,
such as Puss in Boots.
Such as Puss in Boots.
Let him be the hero of his own little spin-off series.
Sure, and he does a great job. He's it's a wonderful evolution to like an archetype that we see a lot, right? Like the undefeatable hero. And it's a really interesting way to say he's scared of death, like literally. Literally, he is afraid.
He's not just scared of dying.
He's afraid of dying.
He's scared of like the personification of death.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. And that's like, what a way to take from the first Puss in Boots, where he was just kind of there, and like we were talking about earlier, just kind of a blatant cash grab. Where in the first Shrek movies, he's a really, really fun addition. In Shrek 2, like you said, we have new characters. Let's explore them. It's not just going to be Shrek and Donkey. They're already fun, but we've seen them.
Let's see their dynamic with somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's get 2 fun new villains. Let's get like, you know, Fiona has a dynamic with her parents. Let's talk about like the Queen and King and how fun they are together. Everyone has a unique dynamic with all these other characters. We have some new ones, something like some old ones, some that are mixes, and that's just wonderful. That's a really, really great way to expand on a story that we already know.
Exactly.
To say,
and it's something
Fiona
like
are in love, but let's see what happens when like we add a couple
there's
other characters.
Outside conflict. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like we were saying with like Mad Max, for example, like Fury Road, where you know that every person, like every character is real. That's a real
Yeah.
person, and they have a history, whether or not you hear about it, and they have a dynamic with these other characters, whether or not you ever see it. Right. So that's kind of the same thing where like, yeah, this is the king and queen that we're not just like throwing into the story. It's the king and queen that like were in the story before. You just didn't see them. And they have this whole
Yes.
history.
Yes. They're like snarky with each
Mhm.
other. Julie Andrews is like tired of him, but
She's
she
Julie
loves him.
Andrews.
She's Julie
Yeah,
Andrews.
she's
She's
fantastic.
perfect.
Yeah.
Like they get each other, you know, and they don't always agree, but that is a married couple who's been together for a
Mhm.
really long time, but they love each other dearly. That it's the
Mhm.
perfect way to like introduce that. Even from the first line, he's like, who on earth are they? And she's like, I think that's our daughter. Like they've got like kind of a fun. They just feel familiar.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's a really difficult thing to make a character feel and not feel like not have your audience be bored with them, you know?
Mhm.
It's a really delicate balance between I'm going to create a character that you already feel like you know, but in a way that makes you want to know more and not in a way that makes
Right.
you feel like tired.
I already know. Like we've already seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, a complicated relationship between a father and a daughter. Interesting.
Mhm.
Let's get more of that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
fun what part of interesting relationship with the in-laws.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, that is a conflict that Shrek would never have experienced before because he lived alone in a swamp.
Yeah.
It's like maybe we have not, as an audience, have seen it in some other element of our life or some other piece of media, but the way to keep it like fresh and engaging is for it to be a new situation for an old character or an old situation for a new character, right?
Yeah. Good.
Hmm.
Plus, they get the old cast back, which is, I think, integral. If
Hmm.
you're doing a sequel,
It
you
can be really hard
can't
to have a
recast.
good sequel without at least most of the original cast.
Yeah. Name one.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, I find most of the time, I literally can't, it puts me in physical pain to try to
Hmm.
watch a sequel that does not have
Where
the
they've
same
like
voice cast.
replaced the main character or something. You're like,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
like
like,
come on.
then why are we even here? Which, by the
Hmm.
way, actually brings me up to the topic of Chicken Run, the
Hmm.
sequel. Did you know they recast them?
No, because I saw that there was going to be a sequel, and I texted it to you, and then I deleted it from my brain. I was like, I'm not interested in that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's weird because so much of the charm of those characters is like the exact way that they're voiced. And if you're casting
Yeah.
somebody new, it's like, why cast somebody new if they're not supposed to bring anything new to the table? They're just supposed to do an impression of the last guy.
Yeah. That's just tired. It's a chewed
Yeah,
piece of gum.
yeah.
Yeah. I read an article about it too,
Did
and
they recast like all of them?
just the main two, as far as I know.
Those are the
The
most
main
important
lady,
two.
I know, she was so frustrated with it too. She's like, my voice hasn't changed. I even did a voice test and sent it to them, and they were like, you're right, it's the same. Still recast. And I don't know about
That is
what's his
so
name?
annoying. Mel
He's Mad Max.
Gibson?
Mel Gibson. Yeah.
Like, imagine recasting Mel Gibson.
Like you can do it with Tom
Wait,
Hardy, but
huh?
that's like on the thinnest of ice. What?
Weird.
Yeah.
They cast Zachary Levi as Rocky?
Whoa, what?
Yeah,
That makes me uncomfortable.
that's weird.
He's
Mel
not gonna
Gibson
do
is still
like
alive.
he's still alive, and he doesn't sound that different.
No, he's only in his 60s.
This is just like Willem Dafoe. I don't look that much older, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not just bring him back? That's so weird. And like, I'm usually, in general, a fan of Zachary Levi. I liked him in Chuck. Obviously, I liked him in Tangled. I haven't seen Shazam, but I've heard good things about his performance in Shazam. However, Why is he playing Mel Gibson when Mel Gibson could play Mel Gibson? It doesn't
Mel
make any
Gibson
sense.
could play Mel Gibson. That's the
Yeah.
worst
It's
tongue
hard to
twister.
say.
Mel Gibson. I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't get it, and I don't like it.
Yeah, that's weird.
Anyway, let's talk about
Yeah, and
Jurassic World.
it's like annoying too to see like a part that you played and are like known and loved for to just go to somebody else and you're sitting right there.
And you're like, I can do this still. It's just fine.
Yeah.
And to have them acknowledge it too, that just feels like a
Mhm.
slap in the face for them to say, yeah, you're right.
It's like not to keep freaking bringing this up, but you know in the Mario movie.
I'm familiar.
So I don't know if you've heard, there was this man, Charlie, good old Charles, Mr. Charles. He voiced Mario for like 1,000 years.
Oh, interesting.
And you know, like when you think of like Mario and like his voice, there's kind of a couple iconic, you know, words or phrases that come to mind that are said in a specific way.
Yeah,
that are said. They're actually all said by
vaguely familiar.
Yeah, they're actually all said by that guy. He like coined those things for his character work, and he's also still alive. And they made a Mario movie, and they didn't freaking cast him as Mario.
No, they didn't.
And so that's weird, right? Because he's right there.
They did cast him in the movie. Did you know that?
Yeah, just as somebody else. That's weird.
God.
It's odd.
There's this wasp that is flying around my window and it's driving me crazy. It's been there for like 20 minutes. Like, go away.
That's annoying.
Yeah, it's distracting me. I don't need help getting distracted. I do that just fine on my own. Yeah. I feel like there was a different way they could have approached that situation. But, you know, Jack Black.
If we were in charge of the world, many things would be different, and many more things would include Jack Black than currently do.
Most of them, if possible.
Yeah.
You'd have to block my number.
I had like, you know how they Tenacious D like released like a 1-minute snippet of a cover that they did of Wicked Game a couple weeks ago. I had just their 1-minute snippet of a cover in my head literally all day, just looping, and I didn't mind. Like I like the song, but I also didn't mind that it was just them like frolicking on the beach, you know.
Don't they look
about
happy?
That video, man, it's so cute.
They're just delightful. I've never seen a man grin the way that Jack Black grins. He can grin, baby.
That's a grinner right there.
And I've always said that.
And grinners are winners, and I've always said that. So
that's another bit I've gotten my friend Kaya hooked on.
Oh, just saying, and I've always said that to a phrase that you've never before said. Yeah.
Yes, she's loving it. She's really good at picking up bits. I'm in the mood to get angry a little bit.
Okay.
So let's talk about
this is your space. You know what? Let's open it up.
Goody.
To get angry.
I was talking to my therapist this week, and I was complaining about something, and I was like, I don't really want to like bring anybody down by talking about it, and she's like, you just gotta find your space where you can complain about it. And I was like, oh, listen, lady, have I told you about Complaint Central?
Don't worry about that. I've created and curated spaces to get angry. I'm 10 steps ahead of you, baby.
Miles. We're streets ahead.
We're streets ahead. Sorry, I just got to stretch, but I'm still listening.
Okay, you're good. I just talking about Jurassic Park, the perfect movie. I've never seen any of the Jurassic Park sequels. Have you?
Yes, and I was kind of unimpressed, but I will say that there's like a really great video that was made using some of the footage from I think the second one. So
that sounds fun.
It earns my respect just for that. Actually, I'll send it to you right now. But
Oh, did he?
Yes.
I love videos. I love that that's most of these conversations is just us say, oh,
We're like,
could
oh,
send
have
me
you
that
ever
link? Or,
seen something that somebody else said? Yeah.
let me send that to you.
Like 1/4 of our conversations are our own thoughts. And the other
That's true.
3/4 are just like, oh, I heard somebody else say this much better.
Jurassic World. I have seen that one.
Mhm.
I actually
And I
really
haven't.
liked the first Jurassic World. Have you seen the first Jurassic World?
Mm-mm.
You haven't seen any of them?
Nope.
That's amazing. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually really proud of it.
Fair enough, yeah. I watched the first one and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it then, and looking back at it and having watched it again since, I still enjoy it. I don't think in the way that they intended. I don't think it was necessary. I think there's a lot of things that could have been different about it, a lot of things that I don't like about it, but overall, it's, it's a dinosaur movie.
Mhm.
And it was fine. I liked it. I thought it was fine. I think it unintentionally touched on the hubris of man angle,
Oh,
not
mhm.
as self-aware as the original was, which I think was its main downfall, because the point of Jurassic World, right, is to, everyone's bored with dinosaurs. We got to go bigger and better,
Mhm.
which is then their downfall, right? Which is going
Yeah,
back
and
to
it's also not even true.
You think people
I
would
wish there were more
ever
things about
get
dinosaurs that
sick
were
of dinosaurs?
mostly about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
How many things are there?
You would think that the sequels to the movies about dinosaurs would be about dinosaurs, right? You would think that.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you?
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? I would. Look, the third Jurassic World sequel is, and I've said this on this channel before, it is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Mhm. Yeah, I've heard that. Actually, I can attest to this. You've always said that.
I genuinely always have.
Yeah.
From the day after I saw it, and I've told the story of the first time I saw it, the first and only time I've seen that movie. I look, there are not a lot of movies that I refuse to ever watch again. That is top of the list. Never again. I will never do it. I won't watch clips from it. I won't. It's awful. It's awful. There's probably 10 minutes of dinosaurs in that movie. And it's 2.5 hours
if it
long.
was any other movie, that'd be sick. You'd be like, there was 10 whole minutes with dinosaurs in this movie. But unfortunately, because it's a dinosaur movie, you do expect there to be more than 10 minutes of dinosaurs.
You do expect more dinosaurs than a dinosaur movie. What you don't expect are bugs.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is the main
Sometimes bugs are in
movie.
movies, but it's usually because they're filming outside, and so there's just happens to be bugs. It's not usually a major plot point.
A mummy that you bring back to life, and you bring with him he brings a swarm of locusts. There's bugs there, sure. It's a mummy movie.
But is the point of the movie the bugs, or is the point of the movie the mummy?
The mummy. And baby, do they ever focus on that mummy? He's in there a lot.
Yeah,
and he should be. He kills it. Yeah. Phenomenal performance in the mummy. There's a lot of mummy in there. Not too much mummy, not too little. Perfect amount
really
of mummy.
Good amount. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is the main antagonist in the movie bugs? Why is it giant locusts?
So
why? Tell me.
I can't.
If
I were in charge of it, it never would have happened. So I just can't tell you.
It wouldn't. And it never should have happened. This has it demonstrates a lot of what's wrong with Hollywood at this point in time, which is exactly what we're talking about earlier, is just blatant cash grabbing and just packing your screen with so many stars and just expecting that will bring the audiences and the revenue flowing. And maybe it will, but does that mean that you've made a good movie? Certainly not. You have, a huge cast of stars. A lot of the, all of the original stars back in the movie, but they're all old and they're all not friends anymore, which I call major bullshit on that. You think that you can...
Yeah, there's no way.
Look, as if Dr. Ian Malcolm sitting with his chest like exposed, like sitting with his leg propped up like this, covered in blood. Do you think that like anyone wouldn't like be...
Yeah, there's no way that they're
mentally
just
and
going to
emotionally
walk away
connected
from
to him forever? No, they're bonded.
And also,
they're
like,
bonded
there's
forever.
that thing about bonding through like a kind of harder traumatic experience. Like, you know, they're going to stay friends. And also, like, Sattler and Grant are like
they were already married in my head,
together,
as far as I'm concerned.
mm-hmm.
You're telling
And
me,
you think,
you're
like,
telling
you think
me
this would just would bring them closer together, right? And then there's like this opportunity where he's like, "Hey, I figured out I'm actually good with kids," and she's like, "Cool."
at the end, where she's looking at him, the kids are like sleeping, curled into him, and he smiles at her, and they like...
Exactly. And you're telling me they haven't seen each other for 20 years or whatever? No way.
I call bullshit.
The only way that would happen would
Not
be like
buying
if
that.
it's in the way that it happens with us, where we're like, "Oh my gosh, Whitney," like as if we haven't seen each other, even though we do talk every day.
When we're doing a bit.
And it's like a running joke that gets less and less funny, and therefore more and more funny every time we do it.
Exactly. Yeah. For those who don't know, I lived in Olivia's basement for several months last summer, and our bedrooms were right next door to each other. And guess how frequently that particular joke happened? At a minimum, twice a day. And baby, did it get funnier every single time? It got to the point where I couldn't even say it because I was already laughing.
Yeah, we like walk out and see each other, and she'd be like, "Small world," keel over. Because the thing is, like, when you know when you do something one time and you're like, "Oh, that's actually funny. That's I'm onto something here." That's what that was, right? You walk out and you're like, "Oh my gosh, dude, how long has it been? I didn't even know you were in town." Like, that's gold.
Really funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that they never would have lost contact with each other, even a
No,
little
it's
bit.
completely ridiculous. Yeah.
I don't know if they had kids. I don't care. Like,
they probably
we never
adopted
should've-
Ian Malcolm, you know?
Gosh, big happy family.
Yeah.
Clearly, he needs someone to take care of him. He's useless.
Yeah. He's just like their kind of weird roommate, and people are like, "What's his deal?" And they're like, "Dude, I cannot even explain it. Don't worry about
He's
it."
the Daffy Duck to their Bugs Bunny.
I love that idea that Alan and Ellie are both
They're
one Bugs Bunny. That's so good.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, about Jurassic World, the whole concept of both of the sequels was flawed from the start, because having a sequel series to begin with was already rough. The Jurassic Park has already had 2 sequels that were less successful than the first one. The one thing that I can give Jurassic World, obviously, but they recognized like the passage of time, right? They were like, well, no, this is a really successful idea. This has a lot of money in it. Obviously, someone would try to go back and do the island again and do it successfully this time.
Right.
Like, that conceit makes sense. But every sequel that they made after that, like, you're making a story off of nothing. You've ruined the park, and now what? They've changed characters completely. Chris Pratt, his Owen Grady was like fun. He was fine. Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard's Claire she was a businesswoman. She was ruthless. She didn't care about her nieces or her nephews. She, didn't care about the dinosaurs that she was in charge of. That wasn't her thing. But then suddenly in the next movie, she's like, oh, save the dinosaurs. I've always cared about them so much. She's a completely different character. That would have been fine if she had been a different character, but she wasn't. They made her the same person and then tried to have it make sense. It doesn't. You've changed everything about the core of the characters that you created in the first one. You tore down the concepts and the structures that you put in place for the first one, you're completely erasing everything you've done and building it back again poor.
Right. Like, do we have to make the same movie again but worse? Like, stop.
But worse. It's so much worse. It's so like it's unbearable how much worse it is. The worst thing about it is, and again, going back to what I was saying about like this encapsulates a lot of what's wrong with Hollywood, is that there's no tension through the entire thing. There is never a single moment where you're stressed or worried or concerned, because obviously they're not going to kill off any of the original 3, right? They're safe. You can't kill off Dr. Ian Malcolm or people will riot in the streets. You can't kill off Claire because she's a woman and that would be anti-feminist. You can't kill off Owen Grady because he's the man, obviously. Can't kill off any of the side POC characters. There's no one they're gonna kill. There's no one. Everyone is safe. No one dies.
And so then it's like, where are we even watching
this?
Because it's not like a fun thing where you're like, I know they're gonna make it out, but I don't know how. It just seems like I know they're gonna make it out and I don't care how. Like,
yeah,
it's a different thing. Like, it's okay to watch something that's like, you know that they're gonna make it to the end, as long as there's still kind of an element of like surprise of how they do it, right? And it's also okay to like kill off a character sometimes.
Yeah, like in the first Jurassic Park, what they did was brilliant.
It's actually high stakes.
It's hugely high stakes.
Like, you see people die, and there's children there. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, these grown men just died. What are you going to do about the children that are here?
Samuel L. Jackson's arm falls on her from behind. That's terrifying. That hunter guy, he's experienced. He is cautious. He is very, very clearly put together. And
and he's like kind of set up to be the kind of person who would make it.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't make it. Yeah.
No. Oh, and his final words, clever girl.
Clever girl.
Everyone else shut up and go home.
Exquisite.
They should. Could they have just stopped the movie there? Maybe. Just to say. Girl. Like, to be at death's door and to still express admiration to your killer. He's the only one who got those animals. He's the only one who respected them.
That's true. That's famously true. Except for Ellie gets there and she's like, oh my gosh, check this out. And Ian and Alan are like, I'm uncomfy. Turns out to be correct. But, you know.
Yeah.
There's something about, like, respecting the animals for themselves and not just for, like, oh, we're going to make so much money off of this.
Right.
But we've already talked about this in Nope.
We have.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal film that is.
Yeah. Oh.
That's great.
Top notch.
I want to go back to prequels really quick and then we can be done.
Yeah, go for it.
If that's okay. I was just thinking about like Rogue One versus Solo, because we haven't really mentioned those yet. So like,
that's true, yeah, because we were going to talk about them and talk about like how one of them's good and one of them's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I want to start with the one that's bad first.
Okay.
That Wasp is back.
I know which one that is.
Solo.
It's Solo. I watched it. It came out this summer. You know, a lot of movies come out like at the end of May.
Sure do.
And because it's like Memorial Day weekend and it's kind of the start of the summer, and that was true for my school year growing up. We would always have like the last day of school or like graduation right before Memorial weekend, and then you just don't go back because it's summer, or in this case it's graduation, so you definitely shouldn't come back. So anyway, for our last, like, the night after or the night of graduation, we have the whole like ceremony or whatever, and then the like local movie theater / like mini golf and bowling or whatever is like rented out, so it's just available for like high school seniors. And there's like a whole like hours long graduation party or whatever. And the year that I graduated, there were 2 movie options to watch the like midnight showing of. And one of them, I don't remember, it was some Marvel, probably like a Captain America movie or something. And the other one was Solo. And I was like, these are not really great choices. But I feel like I at that time had seen a lot of Marvel stuff recently, so I was like, maybe I'll go to a Star Wars thing. Like sometimes
Hmm.
the prequels are good. I was so bored. I was like, what is going on? I don't like
Hmm.
that in the original trilogy, Han Solo like is playing this character of like a ladies' man and he's so aloof, he's so unattached from whatever, but he really secretly is just in love with one person. So you
Yeah,
can
which
tell it's just an
surprises
act,
him.
right? Like he's only ever been in love with Leia, right?
Yeah, because
That
he doesn't
becomes
know how
pretty
to handle it.
obvious. Yeah, that becomes pretty obvious during the course of the original trilogy. Because yeah, he doesn't know what to do. Like he's all
He's like,
suave
he's
until he
clearly
actually
never
gets to the
felt that
point where he
before.
could have a relationship, and then he's like, oh gosh, I never thought I'd make it this far, right? So then in Solo, they give him like another love interest, but it's not like super believable because you're like, he's gonna meet Leia in like a month, and then none of this will matter. Like,
Like,
so
obviously,
weird.
you've crafted one of the most iconic relationships of like
Mhm.
the decade of the century. Why would you go and try to like retcon that?
Yeah, weird.
Han and Leia are like synonymous with like that. Oh yeah, that's a couple, baby. They're meant to
Mhm,
be. They work well
mhm.
together. And like the
They have that sort of
sequels
like
are
a cute
different.
little love hate, will they, won't they? But you know that they will,
Yeah, you know they
you
secretly
know?
care
So
about
it's
each
just
other.
like it's playful banter.
Yeah, yeah. Neither of them really know what to do with the other one because
Mhm.
Han, like you said, Han has never fell in love with someone before, fallen in love with someone before.
Yeah.
Leia is like trying to run a rebellion. She's like,
Yeah,
he's
she's like, "I'm
James.
busy. Like, can you wait? I'm actually
Yeah.
busy. Like, I'm doing something important. I'm a war general." And he's like, "Come on." Anyway, so like in Solo, because there's another thing where Han has another really iconic relationship with a different person who's not Leia, and it's Chewie. Why couldn't the movie have just been about like their kind of youthful shenanigans of like Han and Chewie and Lando, you know?
Sure, where they already know each other. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem, is when you
Because
have such an
would
iconic
love to have
character.
learned more about their backstory with Lando, and I think that Donald Glover was a really good casting choice to play Lando. I
He
just
was
wish there was
phenomenal.
more of him. You know,
Yeah,
like
he
he
was
really
barely
made the
in
movie for me, and anytime he wasn't on screen, I was like, bring back Donald Glover.
it.
We want answers, you
We
know?
want answers. Yeah, he because he did such a great job, and yeah, Lando's a fun character, and like in the original trilogy, his relationship with Han is like really interesting. You're like, oh, clearly they've got a lot of history.
Hmm.
Like,
But you
sure,
don't
it would have
know
been.
if it's good or bad. Because there's
Yeah,
that thing where he's like, is a traitor, but then maybe he's a double traitor. But then, you know,
yeah, they're both very clearly morally complex characters, and that's really
yeah,
fun. And it's
yeah.
especially fun to see like origins for those before they've like matured a little bit, you know?
Hmm.
Um, that's the danger of having such iconic characters, right? That you people have already built up their like mythos in their heads about like who these characters are and who they were. And
Hmm.
so to say, oh, we're going to do a prequel story, you tend to either over explain certain things or under explain certain things. Like most of the
Hmm.
movie I remember is about how they got the Millennium Falcon, which, like, great,
I feel like it would have been like
fine.
for me personally, I would have preferred if there's like one really like surprising and silly goofy chain of events where they get the Millennium Falcon and it takes the first like 15 minutes of the movie and then you can spend the rest of the time seeing their other silly goofy shenanigans as they're traveling around and you see how
Mhm,
it got like the ship got the damage that it has now or you see like
mhm.
why their relationship is so like strained. I don't know.
Right.
I just feel like it should have been more of like a fun, like buddy cop slash coming of age kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Where like it's
Yeah.
like a summer movie.
Because that's his vibe, right? He's not
Hmm.
like in it for the rebellion. He's not in it for these grand conspiracies. He doesn't care. He's a
Right.
smuggler. That's his vibe.
He's just in it for like I'm gonna have a fun little adventure, whatever. I'm gonna get my money and then
And
I'm gonna move
I'm gonna get
on.
what I can out of it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And like, so yeah, you have the whole movie is them like battling this grand conspiracy while, he does the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs or whatever, and they're like, oh haha, because we know it's distance, it's not time. and it's like, great, okay, that's
like, who cares? Okay.
Yeah, it has the exact same vibe of like the live action animated remakes where they like change lyrics to songs to say, oh, but you guys were wondering about this, right? Or like in Beauty and the Beast when they were like changed it to say, oh, the villagers, but their memory was wiped, so that's why no one knew that the castle was over there. And it's like,
yeah, that's dumb.
that was just kind of a funny thing to say during the movie, is like, oh, no one noticed, or like, oh, Han, that's distance, not time. Like, you didn't actually have to make like that a plot point. Or like how he got those fuzzy dice that are in like half a scene once.
Yeah,
like no one cares about these little details about it. I want to know like where he came from, what he's doing, like you said, the shenanigans.
They're doing way too much and also like not doing anything because they're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's
like, how that thing where their blindness came from looking beyond the mark. Like, come on, dude.
yeah, that's exactly the problem with it. It's
that's
just
what it
like
is.
Yeah, you overshot
it.
Did
Did Han Solo need his own movie? No. Could it at least have been fun if it was like about him and Lando and Chewie? Yes. But that didn't happen, so I just feel like Han Solo didn't need his own movie,
No, I get the vibe that like Han and Chewie have known each other like from childhood. And to say that they just
really
met
funny
each other,
to imagine that like it's not Han and Lando that grew up together, it's like Han and Chewie, who's a completely different species, that grew up together. That's fun.
Yeah.
They met. Lando's his like college buddy before he dropped out, you know what I mean?
That's the exact vibe that they give off.
Vibe that I get from them.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, they just met last week. Yeah, come on.
No, they didn't.
No. Of course, all of this compared to a different Star Wars prequel, Rogue One.
Yeah.
This is one of my very favorite movies of all time. Definitely my favorite Star Wars film. I go crazy for this movie. And to think that they just like cobbled it together out of a bunch of like broken edited pieces astounds me to my core. This movie should not exist. It's certainly not in this form, but it does. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's incredible to see what went right in Rogue One that went so wrong in Solo. Because it's like we're saying, like, you shouldn't focus so much on these like kind of minor details of whatever, like focus on the real story. But then in Rogue One, they're like, oh, who sent the message?
Yeah.
Let's make a whole movie about that. And it's somehow like so like interesting and complex and heartfelt. Like, how did they do that?
Incredible. And one thing about the original trilogy is like you get the triumph of a rebellion, right? Like you don't really get a lot of the heartache. And to see this movie say where no, people die. It's really hard what they're trying to do. And to take it seriously.
And that's why it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To see Jin and Cassian sitting on that beach, dying together, and the only thing they have is to just hold on to each other and hold on to the hope that someone got their message that they gave their lives for, is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's exquisite. And the beauty and what they did too is they didn't take an existing character. They expanded the universe that we already have. You have a few familiar faces, but mostly it's these new characters that we've never seen before. You have Jin, you have Cassian, and both of those are really incredibly complex characters just on their own. You have Jin, who is just running and just trying to hide from her past, from her father, from her history, and is just, she doesn't care about the fight that's going on around her. It was her father's fight. It's not her fight. She's done. She's tired of it.
This isn't my dream, Dad. This is yours. She like doesn't even like baseball or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you contrast that with a character like Cassian, who has lived his entire life from the time he was 6 years old fighting this fight. His entire family's been killed fighting this war, and this is all he knows. This is who he is a rebellion fighter. He's not a person. He's tool.
Right.
And that's
it's such an interesting dynamic, and it's so fun to explore. Like, and I love that it's like so short. Like, we haven't seen them before, and we're not going to see them again because they sacrificed their lives for this cause.
Yeah. But in between that, you see them change each other a little bit.
Mhm.
You see Cassian is like, oh, okay, I can be a person, and I can be a person with morals and make decisions. And that's an important part of rebellion, is the ability to make decisions. That's what
Right.
I'm fighting for. So like you see that kind of, that he's fallen into the trap of like the mindless stormtrooper type while fighting for a cause he truly believes in, and realizing like, oh, that's not right. I shouldn't be doing that. Like, I should be able to make a change in myself. And then for her, that he gives her a cause to believe in and realize that she can fight for something and, you know, mean it. That's beautiful. And then the finality of it, that, like you said, they're dead. They're never coming back. And the potential that they had, only to have it be cut short, is just, it's painful, it's cutting,
so sad.
but it is, it's tantalizing, baby.
And especially
that's what makes
because,
the relationship
like,
so
they're so young, and they've just both figured out that they can like change their lives for the better, and then they don't.
It's heartbreaking.
Which is like,
it really
that's what
is.
makes it so impactful. And then, like, if you watch that and then watch A New Hope right afterward, is so triumphant. But you see this kind of like ragtag group of people that have come together to form the rebellion, and you know, like, oh, every single one of these people, it's a miracle that they're alive. Like, they've lost somebody close to them, and everybody's willing to sacrifice literally everything they have to take down the Empire, or to at least try. Just to get the message out there that they won't stand for what's going on.
Yeah. And you see how many people went to fight, how many people went with Rogue One. And it's a huge chunk of their force. Like, it's a substantial amount considering how many fighters they have.
Yeah.
And for them to have lost that number and then just still continue. And, you know, obviously by the time A New Hope happened, they did not have the story planned. So this wasn't intentional. But like you said, if you watch Rogue One and then you watch New Hope, and to have them just kind of breeze past the potential loss, if you think about it in that context, it makes a lot of sense that they've experienced so much loss that at this point, this is a win, and they're not going to focus on the people that they've lost to get it. You know, we're not going to mention it. We're not going to mourn. We just have to take this and run with it.
So at this point, it's just a fact of their life and their world that they're going to have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
And so they can't afford to dwell on the sadness of it, because then they don't have this opportunity to try to win, right? And then even when like Luke is going to try to destroy the Death Star, it's not just him. Like, they send a whole fleet again. It's the only thing they can do, right? Even though they're small in number, they're like, the only way we have a chance is if we send like half of us to any given battle, right? Like, because the Empire is so big and so all-consuming.
Yeah.
It really plays up it lets you know like the actual stakes. Rogue One shows you the actual stakes of what's going on, whereas A New Hope is so wonderful because it is like you finally get to see these people triumph.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you said earlier about, like, you know, I know they're going to make it out, but I don't know how. You have the knowledge beforehand that, you know, they won't. You know, going into it that a lot of, if not all of these characters are going to die in the course of this fight. And even still, right towards the end, you see every single character give everything for each other, for this cause. And the way that every character dies is so meaningful and perfect to their character arc.
Good.
And the fact that they have like 5 distinct characters all working together, and they all have satisfying arcs and, you know,
and the way that they die is like fitting.
It's perfect for them.
Crazy.
Yes. Jin and Cassian die embracing each other on the beach, finally able to sit and rest. They're not fighting anymore. They can just take a breath. Both of them. Bodhi Rook, the pilot, he fought so hard to change who he was and change his situation, and finally he was able to do that. And with his last act, he was able to send a message out and open up communications. You have everything about that final 20 minutes is heartbreaking, because you don't know these people. You've only known them for 2 hours, but what you do know about them, like, they were able to communicate so effectively, and with the acting, I mean, it is just out of Riz Ahmed. Like,
Riz Ahmed, period. Like, enough said.
Send tweet.
You know? Yeah.
All of them did phenomenal jobs with performing their characters and communicating exactly who they were, what they've been through, and what they are hoping to accomplish. Like, Chirrut and Baze are some of the most fun additions to the story too, because you don't think you need them.
Yeah.
Like, you have Cassian and Jin, and you're like, okay, sure, yeah, they're good. They're going to get the pilot. 3, that's going to be the perfect number. And then they're like, but what about a monk and his pet gun?
Yeah. Like, okay,
and like,
I
sure.
guess.
And
they
their
end up
dynamic
being
is
like
really fun
such a
too.
pivotal part of the movie. Like, when they, like, he starts walking out and he says, "I'm one with the force is with me," and just walks all the way across the field. And everyone in the theater bursts into tears. Like, come on. It's so, there's no reason that should be so powerful, but it's like, so, you're like, it's so powerful.
And because it ties back into the mythology of the world, right? Of like, this is a religion, and this is something it's old and abandoned. No one really believes in the Force anymore. Not even Baze. Baze used to be like as devoted as Chirrut, but Chirrut's the only one in this story who's still holding on. But you see, right before we meet Luke in A New Hope, that someone else is still holding on to this. Someone else still believes in the Force and can use it and knows how to read through it.
Right. And I love that, like, as even just the original, like, trilogy, as it goes on, you discover, like, more and more people are still holding on to this. Like, it isn't something that's completely faded into obscurity that nobody's even heard of. People have heard of it still. Like, Han is like, oh, I think that's like hokey wizard stuff or whatever, you know, but Luke is like, well, I think it's real. Right. And you can tell that that's a dynamic that's a dichotomy that a lot of people experience. Right. Like, you hear about this and you have to decide, like, whether you believe in it or not.
It's fun to see that expanded a little bit. Like, they picked the perfect parts of the world to explore further. You know, the tensions that the Empire has with the other cities, and exactly what the people are going through that makes them want to rebel. Because we don't really see that in A New Hope. It's just like, oh, evil bad guy, you know, rebel force, we're going to defeat the evil bad guy, but we don't really see why.
Which is great for what it is.
It's great. Yes, it's phenomenal. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think, honestly, I love having just nameless bad guys who are just bad. I like that. That's good. Not black and white, baby, I'm there. Morally ambiguous characters, you know, I love that. I like, you can do both really effectively. And the fact that they were able to explore exactly what made the Empire wrong and a burden for the people was really fun to see. Like, they're exploiting all the resources from this town. They're, you know, the fear mongering. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so good. And I will say that I am a fan of all the prequels of Star Wars. Not like all of them being like Solo or whatever, but I mean, like, episode 1, 2, 3 and Rogue One.
I love them.
Fantastic. And I think people like think that they're hokey and cheesy and whatever, but that's, like, to me, just part of the charm. But I still also appreciate, like, the good that they do in setting up this universe. Like, instead of it being like the original trilogy is, like, obviously it's very political. Like, it's a rebellious group trying to take down the government empire, right? But, like, it's a kind of more of like a personal story. It's about Luke and Leia.
Yeah.
You know, like, when you get down to, like, the heart of the story, that's what it's about, right? But I love in the prequels how, like, it's about Anakin, but there's also so much world building about like how the Empire became the way that it is now, and all the
Mhm.
like intrigue and like underground shady exchanges between people
Yeah.
that let it blow up into this huge thing.
And the toxicity
Like I
within
love
the
seeing like the
Jedi,
background of it. Yeah.
that's really interesting because like in the original trilogy, there's the good guys. The
Mhm.
Jedi are the good guys. And I love when they challenge that, especially when that's the breaking point for Anakin when he says, the Jedi lied to me. That's not something
Mhm.
I can accept.
And they are
That's
kind of like,
fantastic.
they contradict themselves. You
A
know, when they're like,
lot.
you can't form attachments to people, but then they always say to like search your feelings to find the
Right.
truth. And that's like, so which one is it? Like, should I be emotional or should I not?
Yeah. There's no way to do both.
Yeah.
And do you want to be detached and still like maintain a personal stake in the politics of your region?
Right.
You
Exactly. Like,
can't
how are
do
you going to
that.
be an effective leader if you like don't form emotional bonds?
Right. It's I love going back to like the politics of how the Empire became what it is that it would have to be like sneaky and underhanded and
Mhm.
like oh my gosh, watching it just slowly fall into place after 3 movies and knowing what it's going to become, it's
Mhm.
chilling. And like it really is. And the final sword fight scene, lightsaber duel in Revenge of the
Mhm.
Sith,
Mhm.
genuinely is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I
Oh
used to
yeah,
hate
it's
these movies as a
fantastic.
kid. I thought they were dumb as hell. I didn't like Star Wars in general.
Mhm.
You know, kids are stupid. Looking at it now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, okay, life changing, whatever. It's no big deal. But it
Yeah.
is, it's beautiful. Maybe they overdid it on the flips. Maybe they overdid it on the CGI. Maybe George Lucas is terrible at writing dialogue. All of these things can
That's
be
true,
true.
but yeah, more than one thing can be true at the same time, and he is not good at writing dialogue, famously.
Terrible. Really bad.
But he is famously really good at world building, right? So
Yeah.
if he has all of these elements and people come together and they're like, well, this part of it sucks. But since there's this really great universe presented to me, I can make it work.
Yeah. And they do really
Yeah.
well. Oh, wait. Plus, the addition of Darth Vader in Rogue One. We got to talk about it.
Oh, dude.
Like, I am not like the biggest Star Wars fan. I like the movies. And I love Rogue One, but I'm not like, I don't know everything about the lore. I've seen the movies a
It's
handful of
really
times
hard to know everything about the lore
because
because there's so much that's canon that's only from like the like weird like TV shows or like the
like
original
TV
books, which
shows
are
or
bad.
comics.
They're like
Yeah,
not good, is the thing.
there's so much.
And
What
really,
I'm
if
getting
you
at,
watch the movies, you know everything that you need to know. Like, you shouldn't have to
yeah.
know all of this other lore. It's cool that it exists, but like, you don't have to go there,
Well, for me, it's like, I am never ever in my life gonna read the Silmarillion. I don't care. It's great
Yeah,
that it's
no.
there.
And it's cool for
Like,
people who want to get really into it. That's
yeah,
nice.
there are orcs and there are elves, and that's all I need to know.
And I don't care. Yeah.
Everything else is fine. But like for someone who's not a Star Wars fan, watching that dark screen fill up, you hear the iconic and you
Mm.
see his red lightsaber,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just wrecks like an entire battalion of guys. I was
Because you know he's a
screaming
good
bloody
fighter,
murder.
especially if you've seen the prequels and you've seen Hayden Christensen's insane choreography.
Insane choreography. He's so talented.
He's so good. And like maybe the flips are a little over the top, but like that's kind of fits into Anakin's character, right?
He is. You see Darth Vader and you tell me that's not an over the top dramatic kind of man.
Mm-hmm. He wears
Come
a
on.
cape indoors. Come on. Like there's no
Get real.
reason for that.
Come on.
Except
Grow
yeah.
up, bro. Grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just
Why
like
don't you
that was
grow
the
up? Listen to Ratitude.
by the way, my Oh, sorry. I, I thought someone was talking to you, and so I paused, but then now
Oh no.
it's gone.
You just said one of my, and I was like,
Hi.
and then that was it. Well, it probably doesn't matter.
I'm sure it doesn't. Most of the things I say don't. I'm just talking. There's no thought that goes into any of this.
Yeah, no, not usually. Same for me. Is there anything else we wanted to say about prequels and or sequels?
No, we've been talking for a really long time.
That's true. And this is, for those of you who aren't keeping track, this is in fact our third meeting of the day.
Yeah, I'm sick of you.
Yeah. Like, geez, bring back Jason or something. Yeah. I think
I
we
would
should
love it
do.
if.
You go first.
Oh, okay. I would love it if one of our many viewers, commented on how much they loved Jason and how much they want to bring him back. That would be great.
I think so. It's like on every Drew Gooden video where they're like, "Where's Amanda?" I'm getting real tired of this guy. Bring back Amanda.
She's the main
It's
character of
honestly
his
a
channel.
fair and valid criticism.
She's great.
I think he's a really cool guy. I love watching his videos. He's very entertaining. He seems very down to earth. But like anytime Amanda's there, the video's already 10 times better. Just immediately.
That
just
is
by her
true.
presence.
Mm-hmm. And every interaction they have is just like they get such a kick out of each other.
Yeah. It's like, sometimes you think that people are really good together and you're like, oh, they were made for each other. But they genuinely, I do believe, were made for each other.
Yeah. It's like how
they're the most
twins
in
are.
sync people I've ever observed parasocially in my life. Amanda. Bring back Amanda. Anyway, so I think that what my thing was that in the future, it's been fun to have like we told Allison that we were doing Bahubali, and then Whitney just like walked into the room while we were doing Chicken Run.
Yeah.
And both of those were really lovely conversations. But I do think that in the future we should have like a specific topic that we send to the person in advance, our special guest, because it went really well with Jason today. I think
it did. Yeah, he had a lot of really good points. The flow was really nice. He did a great job.
Yeah, instead of just like throwing questions at him and he's like, I've never thought this before in my life, and I have to just like ramble off an answer, and then I don't even know if that's what I believe. Instead of Whitney saying, I've seen Chicken Run one time as a child,
To be fair, how could we have known?
Yeah.
We wanted her there. She'd never seen the movie. We had to make a choice.
Yeah. And plus, I looked over at her and I said, do you want to talk about Chicken Run with us? And she immediately said an enthusiastic yes. So what was I to do?
I thought she did great, considering.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I've done worse on, the podcast that I have.
That we've been
planning. I have seen and planned, particularly the reboots and remakes one. That is, to this day, one of the worst days of my life.
So weird. It was as if we had never met each other before. It's like, why don't we know how to have a conversation? That literally didn't even happen on the first day that we met. We'd never met each other before.
No, we vibed real well. But then 3.5 years later, it's like,
yeah. We're like, you ever seen a movie? And I'm like, nah.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah.
Felt like we've been talking again. Literally the whole day.
Yeah, well, that's true. Sad boys, listen. We'll listen to your podcast if we're on it, okay? That's This seems a fair exchange.
I think so. Oh, I really would love to reach out to Fisher Alexander at some point. He hasn't released a video in months. I miss him.
I know. Literally every day when I open my YouTube and the subscription thing has a little red dot to say that there's something new, I'm like, oh boy. And then it's never Mike's Mike and it's never Fisher Alexander. And I say, what is even the point of owning the YouTube app for free?
It's not even Drew Gooden. He's my favorite, I think.
No,
I like watching him talk. I like Danny Gonzalez. I like Curtis Connor. I think they're fine. But like Drew is like a special little treat to me. I adore him. I never get tired of watching his old things. I go and rewatch them frequently because he never posts. Like,
he'll post
back.
like,
where
it's
are
like
you?
the last day of the month usually, so
time.
maybe, hopefully today or tomorrow actually is the last day of the month. I don't want to get your hopes up.
Too bad. It's too late.
but
They're way, bro.
maybe.
They're Empire State.
Okay. Oh no. Watching Drew Gooden videos is a gateway drug to making a podcast.
That's true. That's what happened with Jarvis Johnson and Sad Boys podcast. A lot of people don't know that, actually. That's the origin, is they started watching Drew Gooden and they were like,
I can do this.
I got an iPad.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna hang up. Oh, now you're frozen. Now I can't hang up because then it would be rude. Oh, there you are.
Fine, because I heard you. So,
Oh,
bye.
perfect. All right. Bye.